Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. I knew the day would come that the console wars in microcosm would come to the PC in the form of distribution exclusivity. We saw it all the way back with Windows Vista and Microsoft's concerted slow push to drag the industry that way that, over the course of many years, were met with epic failure, pun intended. Now, I've put out some recent videos discussing the Epic Store and their first implementing the concept of paid timed exclusives. I attempted to explain why Epic was doing this and how it could still end up being a net positive in some elements, while at the same time being wholly anti-consumer. Unfortunately, I phrased my statements and arguments less coherently than should be acceptable, and as a result, people got the impression that I somehow liked the idea of paid exclusives. Well, just so there's no confusion, allow me to put this as simply as I can. I do not, nor will I ever support the concept of paid exclusives. I have a long history of decrying them, and I'm not about to change that stance. What I was attempting and failing to do in previous videos was to outline how we can make some good out of a situation that is harming gamers, but the onus is on me to clearly state my positions and opinions, and I've failed in that not once but twice, so I've been reluctant to revisit the topic a third time out of a very real fear that I might fuck it up again. But before I continue on with my opinions and all this nonsense, let's get the facts that we'll be working with up on the screen for everyone to see. Links to any sources will be in the description down below. So obviously Epic Games has been going hard on paid distribution exclusives on PC, or more to the point, they're going hard on paying game developers to not put their games on Steam. The reason why I say this is that it was recently announced during the GDC 2019 that the Outer Worlds would be an Epic Store exclusive, except that it will also release at the same time on the Microsoft Store and no other PC distributors until 1 year later. Now, along with that announcement, we found out that Epic has secured paid timed PC distribution exclusives on numerous other titles, including Ancestors: The Humankind Odyssey, which is a survival game being created by Panache Digital Games. There was also Control, which is being developed by Remedy, the same developers that created Quantum Break and Max Payne. And also Quantic Dreams, formerly PlayStation exclusive titles Detroit Become Human, Heavy Rain, and Beyond Two Souls are also slated to be Epic Store distribution exclusives, along with numerous other games from smaller developers and development teams. And now we have a couple of announcements from Bethesda just today in terms of their games and how they can be bought and played. The first announcement is that in honor of today, being the 25th anniversary of the Elder Scrolls, Bethesda was giving away Morrowind for today only. They announced this via Twitter, and for an anecdotal injection here real quick, I did personally note that Bethesda did not properly configure their link so that in order for it to function properly, you would first have to manually browse to Bethesda.net and log in, so the link they had provided would be able to utilize your cached credentials. The link then functioned, but it did not automatically add the game to the Bethesda Launcher's panel on the left-hand side, although it did add it to the account. I then had to go into the launcher, hit the game's drop-down, and then drag it over from there. Also, for those of you that are worried about missing the 25th anniversary giveaway, they announced that they would be extending the giveaway through the weekend, so if you aren't catching my video here on the day that it went live, which should be Monday, then you don't have to worry, you can still pick it up for free if you would like. The second announcement is that Bethesda would be bringing Rage 2, Wolfenstein Youngblood, Wolfenstein Cyberpilot, and Doom Eternal to Steam as well as the Bethesda launcher, and that Bethesda would be bringing Fallout 76 to Steam later in the year. And one Twitter user did ask the question regarding pre-ordered physical copies for PC, if they would be locked to the Bethesda launcher, if they would be activated on Steam, and Bethesda did confirm that the PC physical copies would contain a code for the Bethesda launcher only. Those are the current facts that we'll be working off of, but I thought it important to make these distinctions because it does raise some very interesting questions that we don't have all the answers for yet, but it could spell even more troubled waters ahead for Epic Games and their extremely overly aggressive paid distribution exclusives standing. So to be honest, I'm not entirely certain why Bethesda is announcing this fundamental shift away from their own launcher here, but it could be for any number of reasons or even combinations of those reasons. We know that Bethesda and Valve had close ties in the past, what with the initial utterly horrendous attempt at paid mods for Skyrim. However, Bethesda began pushing hard for their own launcher right before their own attempt at live services video games in the form of Fallout 76 came out. This was, at least to my mind, a bandwagon-chasing moment to trail off the backs of EA's Origin, Ubisoft's Uplay, and Epic's own game launcher. The reason for that should be fairly obvious. It acts as a form of built-in DRM, and it also acts as an advertising space for other games and microtransactions for those games, a perfect fit when one wants to get into live services. Of course, Bethesda took a pretty severe beating in terms of reputation with Fallout 76, and this could be a backtrack due to that beating. It could also be a bit of a middle finger to Epic's paid distribution exclusives and how they've been targeting Steam in a big way. That is a possibility that some other channels have been going with, but I've seen no real indication of that being the case. I think it far more likely that Bethesda is attempting to earn back some gamer cred, and they've decided to take advantage of the current disgruntlement against Epic Games and use that to their advantage. In reality, their actions, regardless of whether or not they were motivated purely out of self-interest, will be a net positive for gamers because, let's face it, the Bethesda launcher is a bit shit, isn't it? Yes, it is. I think we can all safely say that the Bethesda launcher was not one of the best implemented bits of software out there. And I also want to talk about that for a moment as well. I know I'm sort of jumping around between two topics, but they are closely related. Stable launchers are a huge issue, especially when dealing with the likes of the Bethesda launcher and the Epic launcher, because they are an online connection DRM, and in the case of Epic, their offline functionality isn't their bloody roadmap. Of course, it seems like 7/8 of their launcher is still in the roadmap at this point, and therein lies one of two major problems with Epic. Now, first, the Epic Storefront was put out into the world far too early, and Epic Games should have absolutely known better than to go about things the way that they have, especially when they're directly taking on Steam, which has been a staple of the PC gaming industry for, 16 years now? Of course, Steam was no shining jewel when it first came out, but the first issues of an incomplete storefront on Epic ties directly into the second, which is, of course, the paid exclusives. Now, one thing Epic Games seems to fail to comprehend is that PC gamers have watched and, for the most part, laughed their asses off at the Xbox and PlayStation consoles and their constant warring over paid console exclusives. Now, as a result of seeing those anti-consumer practices from a viewpoint of the outside looking in, many PC gamers are not keen on having to deal with that sort of nonsense firsthand. And when they are then being forced over to an inferior and underdeveloped storefront with very real privacy concerns in order to buy a game that has been locked to that distribution point, forcing them to install yet another launcher among the 5 or 6 they already have, it's no small wonder that they won't thank you for your efforts to undermine your competition. Yes, it is a valid business strategy. It's a strategy that has kept the console manufacturers in business for an extremely long period of time. But PC gaming has always been above that sort of nonsense, and PC gamers wish it to remain so, at least a fair amount of us do. It's an effective strategy, but it is one that is wholly anti-consumer, and while I did not stress this enough in my previous videos, I'm all too keen on repeating myself here. It is not one that I and many others are willing to endorse. Now, Epic's strategy for the moment appears to be working, however. But we may see a shift if publishers like Bethesda and others work directly to counter what Epic Games has been doing. They get some very easy gamer cred out of the deal, which is something that Bethesda, both its development arm and its publishing arm, desperately need right now. Of course, they have to pay Steam that 30% or whatever negotiated rate they got. From what I was led to believe, though, there was no discounted rate for the larger publishers. But it's also possible that Epic Games might be just tuned into the overall fickleness of public relations within the games industry. You see, as a whole, gamers have short memories when it comes to injustices and slights when it's directed in terms of the next game to come out. Case in point, Electronic Arts has earned enmity the world over for their exceptionally anti-consumer practices even in just the past year. Yet, as soon as Apex Legends came out, gamers flocked to it, guaranteeing that EA's coffers remained stuffed with an ultimately easy-to-make game compared to other genres, with near-infinite monetizations through supplementary content and microtransactions. Now, Epic Games could be banking on that same short-sightedness, just as Bethesda could very well be banking on the current controversy to score easy brownie points. We'll see, but no matter how angry we get at Epic, their business strategy appears to be working for them. But also the winds of fate are a fickle foe, and Bethesda learned that little pearl of wisdom with Fallout 76. We'll see if Epic Games learns the same lesson. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.